Big tonight, and this extended report. Venezuelans on Sunday approved a referendum called by the government of President Nicolas Maduro to claim sovereignty over an oil and mineral-rich area of neighboring Guyana. It argues was stolen when the border was drawn more than a century ago. It remains unclear how Maduro will enforce the results of the vote, but Guyana considers the referendum a step toward annexation, and the vote has its residents on edge. The National Electoral Council claimed to have counted more than 10.5 million votes, even though few voters could be seen at polling sites throughout the voting period for the 5-question referendum. The council, however, did not explain whether the number of votes was equivalent to each voter or if it was the sum of each individual answer. Venezuelan voters were asked whether they support establishing a state in the disputed territory known as ESSEQUIBO, granting citizenship to current and future area residents and rejecting the jurisdiction of the United Nations top court in settling the disagreement between the South American countries. Maduro called the referendum a total success. Yet long lines typical of electoral events did not form outside voting centers in Caracas throughout Sunday, even after the country's top electoral authority, Elvis Amoroso, announced the 12-hour voting period would be extended by 2 hours. If the participation figure offered by Amoroso refers to voters, it would mean more people voted in the referendum than they did for Hugo Chavez, Maduro's mentor and predecessor, when he was re-elected in the 2012 presidential contest. But if it is equivalent to each individual answer marked by voters, turnout could drop to as low as 2.1 million voters.
We had hoped that there would really be more people than what we have up to this hour.
The homeland is us, all the citizens who live in it, and we should claim what we have been entitled to for years.
In a related development, Guyana's President Ofanali says there is a concern in Georgetown that Venezuela could act recklessly in defiance of the international law on the border issue. He said the arc of his country's position is bent towards peace.
I'm concerned that Venezuela can indeed follow up their rhetoric and their narrative and act in a reckless manner. And this is concerning because already we have a dangerous situation in Venezuela where the people are suffering as a result of the type of governance, where the respect for the rule of law, where democracy and all these things are threatened. So we are concerned that a reckless and adventurous action can lead to more displacement of the Venezuelan people. That creates added regional pressures on migration and so on. So as a country, we're not taking this for granted. We're not taking a narrative out of Venezuela for granted. That is why we have been working with our neighbors, our friends, CARICOM, Commonwealth, the OS, have all issued very strong statements and call on Venezuela to respect the rule of law and respect the order of the ICJ.
Meantime, Guyana's Vice President Barra Jackdeo said the outcome of the referendum was disastrous for President Nicolas Maduro.
From all that we have seen, it was a low turnout victory that he had. So they claim that about 50% of the eligible voters turned out at this referendum. This was the Electoral Council. We know that that figure is a rigged figure. All day long we saw images from the polling places and reports from the Latin American press pointing out that it was an abysmally low turnout and people were not interested in the referendum. So miraculously, they extended the time frame in the evening, claiming that they had large numbers of people at polling places, which wasn't factual, and then manufactured a 50% turnout of eligible voters. But even if we assume for a moment that the 50% turnout was real, it meant that only half of the eligible voters showed up at the poll, and of the half that showed up at the poll, at least 5% voted no, maybe 5% voted no. So that meant that it was less than half of the total eligible voters who voted yes at this referendum that was held. That cannot be seen as a mandate. That cannot be seen as a victory.
Jagdeo said the Guyana government does not believe Nicolas Maduro will order an invasion of Guyana following the referendum.
Maduro has been saying to the leaders that he has no intention of invading Guyana. He said this to CARICOM leaders and to all of those who spoke with him. We have had the opportunity to speak with many of those leaders here at COP, and they've all said in their conversations with him, this is what he has said. The lawyer to the ICJ said the same thing. Delcio Rodriguez said they're not going to turn their back. We don't believe on the outcome. We don't believe they have a mandate for anything. And secondly, that they will invade Guyana.